Welcome to the Tantra and Yoga podcast. These podcasts are recorded live at Anuttara ashram with Artemis and Bhairav in the Nishka Nation of northern BC, Canada. They bring clarity to some of the fundamental questions by spiritual seekers along the path of awakening.
How is their ego beneficial to us?
Yeah, the ego is so important. And unfortunately, in a lot of spiritual traditions, they make the ego seem like a bad thing, like an enemy that we need to overcome and conquer, which for some of us may be a beneficial way to perceive it for some time. But without the ego, you wouldn't, people have probably heard me say this before too, but without the ego, you don't know where your food hole is. You know, and you walk around naked, and we've seen this in masters where they've lost their ego so much that they're disassociated, in a sense, not because of trauma, but because of bliss, from knowing their universal self. And so then they can't feed themselves, they can't bathe themselves, they can't go to the bathroom. They're often described as or pictured as Ramakrishna. You know, his disciples, Bhairav has told this story before, but his disciples couldn't say the word God around him because as soon as that would happen, he would just freeze and like go into these weird positions, and he'd just be gone for several hours, and be like we were all having a lovely time hanging out with Ramakrishna, and you had to go say God, George. Like, you know what it does to him. Or Anandamayi Maj, the same kind of thing. As soon as her mind would go to something beyond the ego, let's say, she would go on the floor and start talking in tongues, and beautiful poetry would come out of her mouth, but then she had to be taken care of sometimes for weeks because she was just gone. So the ego is very helpful for us to be able to move in the world, to be able to localize ourselves, and to be able to put on our pants in the morning.
It's really good to know the difference between egoism and egotism as well, because egotism is arrogance and selfishness, and then egoism is actually like having this ego, having an individuality. So it's important. Otherwise, we can't live. And even the greatest masters will have this tinge of egoism in order to stay alive. And the minute that goes, then they can't take care of themselves, and maybe even others can't take care of them either, because they no longer have an ability to be an individual. So the body can't even live. They decide to exit the body. So yeah, it's really important. And really, like in Tantra, I was just explaining this to someone earlier, but like there isn't like in Tantra, it's considered that nothing is really bad, nothing is negative. Even the so-called evils of the world, they can be things that teach us, and likewise, the ego can teach us so much, and so can egotism. Maybe one of the worser evils in the world can be such a blessing for us as well. Because if we didn't have that, then we'd have nothing to push us forward to realize truth. So it's kind of like one of these things, like this is often philosophized a lot, and trying to understand why is it that we exit from truth only to go back to truth. Like, for example, an animal, like let's say a domesticated dog, one of our dogs, they live in so much truth. They're like, they're okay, some domesticated dogs can manipulate, and cats can as well and stuff, but it's like their unconscious reactions. They're very connected with the divine, but yet they at least from our understanding, they don't have a reflective an ability to have a reflective process like we can, because we have a strong sense of the ego, of what is mine and what is happening, So yeah, as children, and you can see children, when they're very, very young, they're just exploring the world, and they're in samadhi, they're in the highest state of realization there, but they don't know it yet. They don't have it's like you don't know what it's like to be rich until you're really poor, or you don't know what it's like to be poor unless you've been wealthy to really be poor. So
you don't know what it is to be separate until you've been separate.
If you found this podcast helpful, be sure to follow and turn on notifications to be the first to know when new episodes are released. To embody philosophy through practice, join our Sangha membership to access a wide range of Tantra and Yoga classes and community. Hari Om.